you've ever asked yourself, how can I get the swing and the golf game that I've always imagined without trying every tip, every training aid, watching every video after video on social media, then this podcast is for you. Welcome. I'm Daniel Guest, and welcome to the Imagine Golf podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Imagine Golf and PXG. All right, today's episode is a good one, and I say I say that all the time. It seems like, but I think this is a really good one. It's the genesis of it, like all the podcasts are. It comes out of student lessons, right? So I had the fortunate opportunity to give a lesson. Actually, someone came to take a lesson all the way from Puerto Rico, believe it or not. Flew in, picked him up, and we actually did a playing lesson with him. Played 18 holes, and then did a lesson with his wife in the simulator. But I had a couple different playing lessons this last week, and it made me think about playing with people that really don't know their true distances, right? And I know what they think they hit the ball or how far they think they hit the ball, but they don't really know how far it really is, and they certainly don't know the carry distances. So I started to look at some numbers, and the correlation between your handicap and how far you should hit the ball was striking. So I thought I'd go over that with you, and I'd break it down into like 5 strokes. So we'll start with like a 25 handicapper, right? So, and then we'll go all the way through to almost scratch. So the main gist of the podcast is, look, the how far you hit your irons definitely depends on your handicap more so than the number of the club. Let me repeat that. It How far you hit your clubs depends more on your handicap than actually how far you hit each club. All right. And by the way, this is not subjective because this is a hard data from TrackMan and from ShotScope, right? So we're going to look at irons from, let's say, 4-iron to 9-iron, right? No one hits a 3-iron anymore, right? And so I don't want to go through the wedges. We only have a half hour in this session here. So 4-iron to 9-iron. And these are real results. In other words, these are on the course. These are not in a simulator, right? So let's start with a 25 handicap, right? If you have a 4-iron in your bag and you're a 25 handicapper, you can only hit the green like 4% of the time, 6% of the time, right? In regulation. And you miss it by more than 230 feet, all right? So I don't even know why you even bother with a 4-iron, right? I would, unless you're going to use it when you're underneath a tree, right? You should probably take that 4-iron out of your bag, right? The 4-iron, the average distance the 4-iron goes for a 25 handicapper is 151 yards. So, you're standing over the ball, it's 200 yards to the hole, and you whip out your 4-iron, you are smoking crack. It is not going to go anywhere close to that. So let's figure out a better opportunity from 200 yards than pulling out the 4-iron, you 25 handicappers. A 5-iron for a 25 handicapper is 143. A 6-iron only goes 137. A 7-iron goes 132, an 8-iron goes 122, and a 9-iron goes 108. And by the way, the 9-iron is your most reliable iron in your bag. You hit the green 23% of the time with that 9-iron. So you should be using it all the time. All right. I thought those numbers were a little bit shocking, to be honest. Right. All right. 20 handicapper. A 20 handicapper, the 4-iron finds the green only 8% of the time and misses by almost 200 feet, right? Your mid-irons, let's call them, I don't know, like a 6-iron, right? You can hit the green only 15% of the time with your 6-iron and only about 19% of the time with your 7-iron. So these are still not good numbers, right? The gapping in between clubs is way inconsistent, really, really inconsistent. So with a lot of the irons, going about the same distances thereabouts, right? And I should have said that about the 25 handicapper, right? What that means for a 20 handicapper is some irons have very small distance gaps, even though you might think different, right? So your 7 iron, your 6 iron might only have like a 4 yard disparity in between them when it should be, 7 to 10 plus yards, right? So for a 20 handicapper, the 4 iron goes on average 169 yards, right? So not much farther. Your 5 iron will go 162. Your 6 iron goes 151. Your 7 iron will go 146. There's that disparity difference we were talking about. That's only 5 yards between a 7 iron and a 6 iron. The 8 iron is 138, and your 9 iron is 129, right? And your 9 iron is still your most popular club, right? Because you can hit the green almost 30% of the time with that 9 iron. So again, it comes to no surprise to me anyway that a 20 and 25 handicapper, the 9 iron is their most reliable club. But I bet if I asked them, they would give me something else, right? They would tell me like their 7 iron is their most reliable club. And some of them might even say their 5 iron, right? But again, there is no chance their 5 iron is their most reliable club. And it's only going 143 yards for that 20 handicapper, and for a 20, or excuse me, for a 25 handicapper, and for a 20, it's only going 162. So you could easily make a case with these two categories, hybrids, man. All right, let's get a bunch of hybrids going. But that's a whole nother podcast, if you would. Uh, 15 handicappers, right? If you're a 15 handicapper, your iron play really does start to stabilize. You're a better player, clearly, right? But the long irons still remain problematic. Shocker there, right? So you're a better player, right, through the majority of your irons, but your longer irons are still problematic and you're still using them for whatever reason. All right. Here's where the 7 iron really does become a decent club. You're hitting it 20% of the time. And your 9 iron goes all the way up to around 35%. So your 7, 8, and 9 iron are your go-to clubs. Your 9 iron, again, is still the most effective club in the set, or the irons, I should say. And the proximity numbers show that even when you guys hit the greens, you're leaving many makeable birdie putts, right? Or excuse me, they aren't leaving, my bad. Meaning when you're hitting into the green, your approach shots, you're getting on the green, but it's on the edge of the green. The pin's on the left and your shot's on the right. All right. Um, so you got to work on that. And, there's a whole nother podcast on that, how to aim appropriately. But you're a better golfer for it. There's no doubt about it, right? Your gapping absolutely improves compared to the other two versions of your counterparts in the higher handicap levels. And most of your irons are getting that gapping appropriately, close to about 10 yards on average for men, 7 yards on women, right? And by the way, all these numbers are for men. Your 4 iron, right, goes 186 yards. And I guarantee you, if you ask this group of people, they will tell you it goes 190 or 200, but it doesn't. It goes 186. Your 5 iron goes 169. Your 6 iron goes 162. Your 7 iron goes 154. Your 8 iron goes 146. And your 9 iron dials in at about 136. So this is a good golfer here, 15 handicap. Not a great golfer, but a good golfer. They're not embarrassing themselves out there. They probably practice a little bit, not a lot, but they're someone you wouldn't mind playing with. Not that you mind playing with anybody, but you get the point, right? And they're not losing a ton of balls. Hey guys, it's Daniel here. Hey, thanks for listening first and foremost. Handicaps haven't changed in over 35 years for one reason and one reason only. Traditional golf instruction just doesn't work. So if you're serious about getting that swing and game that you've always imagined, take a look at our site, imaginegolf.com. Join our members only club. Check out my video series, or even take a virtual or in-person lesson with me. There is no one who's more passionate about making you better in the industry, and I guarantee you'll golf better, guaranteed, or everything is free. Now we get into the 10 handicap, right? At a 10, by the way, at a 10 handicap, you're in the top 10 percentile of all golfers, right? Iron distances definitely get better, but consistency is still a limiting factor, right? Meaning you're hitting the ball farther, you're hitting more greens, but you are not as consistent as you could be. Greens in regulation rates with long irons still remain really, really low. You get the ball there, but you're not hitting the green. But the 7 iron now hits about 27 to 30% of the time. The 9 iron, though, escalates all the way to 40 or 45% with a proximity of nearly only 70 feet. So your 9 iron at this level is the most lethal club, and it's going obviously a little bit farther for this group, right? So that improvement, right, makes short irons reliable scoring clubs for sure. But anything above a 7 iron, not so much, right? You leave a lot of missed greens, right? And short siding yourself a lot. And it puts you in more peril than most 10 handicappers would actually admit to or even realize, I think, if they looked at their numbers. But the ball's definitely going farther. The 4 iron now is going that around 200 yards. A 5 iron is going 187. A 6 iron goes 171. That's amazing because that's exactly the number that my 6 iron goes. A 7 iron is 161. An 8 iron is 150. And the 9 iron goes 140. That's weird for me because my 9 iron only goes about 135. And like I said, my 6 iron is definitely 171. And I hit my 4 iron just a little bit further than 199. So my distances are very similar to this. And I'm about a 9 handicap now. So these are pretty spot on, right? All right. So now we're getting into the best golfers, right, at your club, best golfers in your county, best golfers in the business, right? 5 handicappers. So low handicappers for sure control their irons way, way, way better. Their proximity numbers uh, are super tight, right? They're underneath 100 feet, right? 30 some yards, right? With a 6 iron, right? And the green success rises to almost 39% with a 7 iron and almost 50% with their 9 iron. 9 iron. These guys, they still don't make the long irons automatic, but their misses are way closer and way more predictable and consistent, giving them a better chance to get up and down and actually shoot par, right? Which is why they're a 5 handicapper, right? And you'll also see, which makes perfect sense, that the distant gaps between the clubs are crazy consistent. Whether it's 9 yards, 8 yards, 10 yards, 11 yards, it doesn't matter. It's crazy consistent. The average 4 iron for this group of 5 handicappers is 201 yards. The 5 iron is 183. The 6 iron is 172. And the 7 iron tops out at 164. Man, I remember when I used to hit my 7 iron 164. The 8 iron is 153, and their 9 iron is 139. So these are really fun guys to play with, right? Or girls to play with because they're great golfers, and they know they're great golfers, and they're a pretty confident bunch. They get up and down, like I said, almost always, and they rarely make 2 mistakes in a row. Rarely, all right. But I think even they would be surprised at their numbers as far as how far they're actually hitting the golf ball. Um, so let's talk about the proverbial scratch golfer, right? You are a 0 handicap, right? Of course, they hit their irons farther. Of course, they hit them straighter and closer. And the short irons, the gap around the short irons really shows. I mean, 46% greens in regulation with a 7 iron and over 60% with their 9 iron. They are inside of 50 feet with that same 9 iron. And these players leave themselves more birdie opportunities than all the others, all right, which would make sense. It's interesting to note that the difference between a professional golfer and a great golfer is not the amount of birdies. So Scotty Scheffler, as an example, makes an average of 3 birdies per round. A scratch golfer, amateur golfer, makes 1. per round, right? So it's not the number of birdies that is blowing up people's scores. It's the amount of bogeys, double bogeys, and quads that are on the card, right? Not that these guys get a lot of doubles and quads on the card, but you get the point, right? So the game itself isn't as far away from the professionals as we tend to think it is. Um, by these incredible shots. It's the bad shots that separate the amateurs from the pros. But these guys are definitely striping the golf ball, man. A 4-iron, if you're a zero handicap, on average goes 223 yards. A 5-iron goes 200 yards. A 6-iron goes 185. A 7-iron goes 178, and an 8-iron 166, and a 9-iron 155, right? Just a quick side note, man. Heck, 10 plus years ago, I'm playing golf with my 14-year-old son, and he was already a good golfer, and my my golf game was declining. And we're probably like 6 or 7 holes in, and my 9-iron used to go 150, and then I could hit it pretty close with it from that distance, and I was super confident with it. And 4 holes, 7 holes in, I forget what the number was, and it's not working. The 9-iron's not going 150, and then I'm trying to hit it a little harder. Now I'm hitting it thin. And I come back to the cart after, another bad 9-iron shot. And my son says to me, "Hey, Dad, why don't you just, hit?" Or no, actually, he says, "Why are you so mad?" And I said, "Man, my 9-iron, man, I can't dial it in today." He goes, "Well, why don't you just hit another club?" I go, "Because my 9-iron goes 150." And he looks at me without even pausing. He goes, "No, it doesn't." Right? So I thought, oh my God, man, out of the mouths of babes, this 14-year-old is way smarter than I am, and he's speaking the truth. So that was the first realization that I was getting older and starting to lose some distance about 10 years ago. And so I was right around 50 years old. That's kind of funny when I think about that. So um, but back to that, the 9-iron for a scratch golfer goes 155. So um, those are the numbers, man. I thought it was interesting because if you play more towards your handicap, not towards your age or what you think you can hit it, I wonder what you would score. All right. My gut tells me you would score 3 to 5 strokes better immediately. I mean, immediately. Right. So what do you got to lose? Right? If I were you, I would take this to the bank. I'd take it to the course. I would play 3 rounds like this. All right? I'm gonna drop these charts in the notes or give you a link on our site to go get them, right? But print these out, all right? And play to them, right? Uh Obviously, edit them for your, if for me as an example, if I go back up to I'm currently a 9, so if I go up to the 10 and I look at the numbers, like I said, my 7-iron, excuse me, my 6-iron is spot on, but the 7-iron numbers are a little bit off here. Just make that adjustment, right? But then, and then drop me some notes and let me know, like, hey, Daniel, thanks, man. That absolutely, was a better barometer of my game, and I'm playing better. I'd be curious to know in the real world if it actually works. My gut tells me again that it absolutely will. So, but here's some final thoughts, right? Um, if you use this as a benchmark, right? Um, I can almost guarantee you, like I just mentioned, 3 to 5 strokes. I almost said 7, but I think that's a little aggressive, right? Um, if you went and got fitted, right? Or if these numbers are way off and maybe it's time to go get fitted for golf clubs, right? So you're looking at your handicap, and so let's go up. So if I'm looking at, let's say you're a decent golfer, but you're not great. You're a 20 handicapper, right? And you got 20-year-old Tommy Armour 845s, right? Or 25-year-old Titleist DCIs that you absolutely love. And you're looking at this chart going, yeah, the average 7-iron goes 132 and you're hitting yours 120. It's probably time to go take a look at getting fitted for clubs, right? The technology is a real thing, and you're going to benefit from it, right? So why make the game any harder? I think this would make a really, really good case if we just did that and said, hey, you know what? If you're not hitting some of these benchmarks, you need new clubs. Clubs aren't the answer. I'm not saying that, but you get the point, right? If you if your numbers again are just way off, right? You're doing something wrong, right? Because these are averages, right? This has nothing to do with age. It's averages. So take note of that. And pay attention to that. I can definitely help you if you have any questions on club fitting or what you should do or just my numbers out there on the website. Feel free to shoot me a text at any time. All right. So really interesting stuff. Use this distance chart again as the benchmark. And here's to getting you the swing and the game that you've always imagined. Hey, Daniel here. If you're looking to get new clubs, you need to consider PXG. And I know what you're thinking. PXG is too expensive, or I'm not good enough to get fitted for clubs. And look, I'm here to tell you that neither is true. PXG is no more expensive than any of the top manufacturers out there, and everyone and anyone will benefit from getting fitted for clubs. And here's the best part, it's literally free. That's right. Getting fit at PXG is free. So when you're ready to get a new driver, new woods, new irons, or even a new putter, simply let me know and I'll help you get the swing and the game you've always imagined with a new set of clubs from PXG.